So, Femi, we're here to talk about money.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's my favorite topic.
I like talking
Monday
about
evening.
money too. I also like spending money.
Yeah. I know somebody in this household who does that as well. So that's
No naming and shaming.
no naming and shaming. No naming and shaming. As a
So,
statement.
money is at the forefront of a lot of our minds at the moment because, as we keep hearing about, we're in a cost of living crisis. And I think for some people who kind of were getting by fine, suddenly they're finding they're not getting by fine. And then I guess you've got other people who already weren't okay and they're even more not okay. And then there's another bracket of people who clearly do have enough money. And it's just, I guess it's hard to know how to approach money and what to do, whatever situation you're in, whether you have money or you are lacking. And so it would be really good just to have a conversation around that. And one of the things I'm struck by is that when the church talks about money, it's often in the context of giving. And one of the things that I think would be really good to talk about is how do we manage our money well? And what do we do when we're struggling? So first of all, just tell us a bit about why you're passionate about money.
Absolutely. So for me, my my kind of passion I would say rose up more so when my father passed away in 2017. And the one thing I noticed, obviously going through his details as you have to do, there's an admin of death that happens. I'm going through his bank details, going through his stuff, and I'm like, wow, he was a good earner. Like he was a doctor, he was a GP. He made loads and loads, of money as as income. But I just didn't see it being going anywhere. I didn't see it kind of being stewarded properly from my point of view. There were things that he did that was like he was a massive giver. That was actually where most of it went to. But then I just thought to myself, like, I don't know enough about this topic. I never had conversations with my parents about money when they were alive. It was always more a case of, oh, we need to send money to somebody, or somebody needs money here. But it was never a conversation about, okay, no, this is how money works. This is how a savings work. This is how a mortgage works. None of those conversations happened. So, and I think that's probably either the case for a lot of people. They never had conversations about money growing up. So, you become an adult and and you now have to deal with money as everybody else has to. And you have no track record of it, apart from whatever your parents or whoever's in your household kind of showed you or didn't show you. And I say showed you or didn't show you because I suppose there's two ways that you teach kids in particular about this topic. You either sit them down and talk to them, or you say nothing and they learn anyway because they watch what you're doing. So you find a lot of people, maybe that have, bad money habits are probably what they've just watched and learned from people who have been around them growing up, or people who are really, really like cautious and they're like really, really risk averse and stuff. Again, it's probably what they saw maybe their parents doing. So for me, I was like, okay, I'm going to be a father. I need to know about this topic because I need to pass on this information down to my kids. And that's when I started kind of really, reading more about it, and just like opening my mind to the topic of money and how to kind of be a better steward of it. And I think that's the key word I'll probably keep mentioning throughout this whole talk is stewardship, just being a steward of this money. Because it's, from my standpoint as a Christian, money is not mine. I'm just merely looking after it, and I'm a custodian of it. I've been charged to use it for something. It's not just to buy fast cars and and not saying those things are not nice to have, but that's not the main focus of it, from my point of view.
It's funny because Jesus talks more about money than so many other topics that we can pick out of the Bible. And so what that tells me is that it represents a lot. Money, your attitude towards money actually like is very telling. But I think that just drawing on something you said a bit earlier is that there can be so much embarrassment and shame around money. And, you know, you can feel embarrassed if you earn more than your peers, but also if you are in debt, it's something you can't tell by looking at someone if they're in debt or what they're like with their money. And so I imagine if you are in debt, it's something that's quite easy to cover up, and then you kind of layer on piles of shame because you're carrying around this secret, and it can be just debilitating, I guess.
Absolutely. No. It's I think the guilt and shame of debt in particular is one of the biggest things that, you know, that we see with people that come onto the course. That's why they even come onto the CAP course in the first place. But just that kind of notion of, again, you don't know what you don't know. So when you get into a situation, you know, particularly with debt, I think there's this thing that happens in your mind thinking, I shouldn't be in this position. You know, I'm an adult or whatever. Like I should know better. But in fact, maybe you don't know better. Maybe you've never been shown better. So then it just kind of cycles. So then you kind of just ignore it because you don't have the tools to actually tackle the problem. So the next best thing is, actually, I'm going to ignore it. But that never helps. That only makes the problem, you know, worse. And again, you know, we kind of live sometimes in a society where, you know, it's almost seen as a sign of weakness if you ask for help, particularly with this topic. So you have also that kind of shame that you don't want to experience because you don't want to admit that you're failing as an adult in this area that you should know about. And again, you've never been taught about this. So it's a really, really weird, you know, circle that you kind of fall into with this topic in particular.
And I think that's such a good point, what you say. If you've never been taught, it's kind of understandable to not be able to always manage money well. So I think, I mean, one thing just from talking to you is it's just so important to have compassion on yourself. If someone watching this has got themselves into a situation, like there should be some compassion there as well, because, you know, no one just puts their hands up and says, oh, I want to get into debt, or I want to be, you know, behave badly with money. It's just, that's not how it happens. It's often just little by little. And then there's companies out there that are just, you know, it's all kind of, oh, buy now, pay later, and interest free. And they're so kind of captivating, some of these schemes, that it's no wonder that as a nation, we're in a lot of debt.
No, and this is the thing that I think, you know, general public need to understand. Finance companies that sell these products, and I use that word on purpose, it's a product. They're selling your products. These buy now, pay later kind of plans, you know, credit cards and so on. They're products. And the purpose of a business selling a product is to make a profit. So, you know, I'll give you two examples. The first time I was like shocked was when I went to uni, and in the first week, this is, you know, everyone's still getting accustomed to the uni life. There's a credit card company. I wouldn't mention them, but, you know, they were offering students credit cards, and I was just like, what? Like literally, like, so again, imagine you've got these, you know, fresh-faced teenagers who've left, maybe some of them have left home for the first time and so on. They've never really dealt with any major financial, you know, responsibilities, and you're offering them essentially what seems to be free money. You know, you've got credit card limits of, you know, up to £1,000. So of course, like, it's so tempting to just go out and spend this money. You're not thinking, oh, I'm going to use that money and, you know, make a really wise investment. No, you're going to go out and you're going to spend this money. And I thought, for me, that's quite irresponsible from that company to kind of almost, you know, almost target that group. But again, they're a company, they're selling a product. You know, they see an audience that would be receptive for that product, they're going to go for it. And then the second one was, you know, probably maybe like 2 years ago, just before the pandemic, is when I was on a tube and I saw an advert for JD Sports, and he had in there, you know, like, you know, trainers, clothes, and all kind of stuff. And you could do a buy now, pay later scheme for like trainers. And I was just like, that was really weird to me, because I was like, I remember when I was growing up, if I wanted a pair of trainers, you saved up for it, you know, you got a little job on the side, and you went out and you bought it. So I thought to myself, and I remember saying to my wife, I said, this is dangerous, because what it's doing is it's creating this world where if you want it, you can have it, even if you don't have enough money in your pocket to pay for it. And I think that is really, really, really dangerous. So you've got, you know, all these companies that are out there now that provide this service. And again, it's targeting slightly younger audiences, you know, that maybe are not so well versed with this topic. So I think you've got a point there for me. It's just we have to be mindful. We have to be intentional, and we have to again guard. You know, some of our kids are going to be growing up in this type of environment, so you have to be careful with that.
What wisdom would you say the Bible gives around the topic of money?
I think again, I'll go back to the word I mentioned. The key thing is stewardship. You know, it's mentioned a number of times in the Bible, but it's the notion that this money is not just for you. Essentially, the money is from a biblical standpoint and from a Christian standpoint, is meant to be a tool to be used for the advancement of the kingdom. So oftentimes you saw, you know, people, when large movements happen, particularly in Acts, that people sold off their goods, because again, what people do, people kind of gloss over some of those bits, like, oh, you know, the apostles just kind of went out and, you know, they spread the word. But yeah, it cost money to spread the word. Like, they had to travel to different places. That wasn't free. They had to have a bankroll. So they had to raise funds to actually do this mission work. So I think, you know, as you mentioned, it's spoken about, you know, so much in the Bible, because I think it's almost like not a warning, but it's almost like, you know, signposting to say, take care with this. And one of the verses in the Bible that a lot of people refer to is 1 Timothy, excuse me, off there, is 1 Timothy, let me find it. 1 Timothy, sorry, has written down, there we go, 1 Timothy 6:10. And people refer to it, and it's the verse that says, for the love of money is a root of all sorts of evil. And the full verse goes on and says, and some by longing for it have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many a pang. And essentially, what I know that a lot of people who are not even Christians refer to that verse, and they miss out that big word, which it says the love of money. They just go, oh, money is the root of all evil. And that's it. And they stop at that. And essentially, again, the Bible speaks very, very clearly that it's a condition of your heart. It's if you love money so much that, you know, it becomes almost like your God, then you're going to fall into these traps, and you're going to fall into these ways that take you away from the faith. But if your heart condition is actually correct, if it's in line with the word of God and with the purpose that you've been put on earth to do, it's a very powerful tool. And I think it's trying to get the message across, because I think a lot of people, again, will have that notion like, actually, maybe as Christians, we're meant to be, you know, poor, we're meant to be, you know, destitute. That's not true. You know, I kind of want to, you know, state that out now, that's a myth. I don't see any how to say it. I don't see that Christians being poor serves anybody, because I think you then can't actually look out for anybody else,
Mm.
because you're just solely focusing on yourself at that point in time, because you're just trying to survive. So I'm like, why, how are you meant to do community if actually all I can focus on is myself, because I'm just trying to keep myself alive? It's not. It's so like that thought of, oh, you're meant to be poor as a Christian. I think that has to be addressed as well from a biblical standpoint.
Really helpful. And I think that Bible verse is often taken out of context, the love of money. So I'm glad you pointed that one out. So let's just say, broadly speaking, we've got two groups of people. One who may not even be in debt, but struggling financially. And especially, petrol prices, energy prices, food prices, everything going up. And they're kind of worried about how they're going to make ends meet. And then let's just say we have another group of people who do have enough. Let's just talk about what people in each of those groups should be doing right now. So let's take the people who are struggling financially or anticipating that they're going to struggle over winter. Have you got some just simple tips or perspectives that might help someone in that category?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the first thing I would say is, as I say this to anybody that comes on the course, is you have to create a budget. Like, actually put pen to paper and list out everything that's coming into your bank account and everything that's going out. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people have never done that exercise in their adult life. Just seeing it in black and white and just seeing, oh, actually, where am I financially? Where is my hard-earned pounds going to? I think that would be the first step. For anyone. And then once you kind of do that and kind of see, okay, this is because sometimes you might actually feel like you're in a worse state than you actually are, just because you feel that way. But actually, get to the facts. I would say don't be moved by emotion and stuff. Like, be moved by facts. Like, find out exactly what it is that's going on with your bank account, and then from that point you can then start picking off and saying, okay, actually, can I save myself money in this area, or can I cut this stuff out for now? I don't really need it to kind of get through this phase. I often say to the guys coming to the course, when times are quite hard and lean, you try and cover these four things. You try and cover food, you try and cover shelter, you try and cover clothes, and you try to cover transportation. So those four things are like the pillars, essentially. Those are the basics. Okay. And then everything else outside of that, you can kind of say, okay, in this period, I'm going to either eliminate those or I'm going to drastically reduce those things. And then on those four things, you then try to find the cheapest way to kind of, live by those four things. So, for instance, a good example is transportation. So if let's say you were driving to work or whatever it is, you might want to consider maybe car sharing, 1 or 2 days a week. That will save you and the other person some pounds at a pump. You may want to consider, getting a bicycle and cycling to work, and that might actually also have another effect. So let's say you've got like a gym membership and you're not really getting to the gym, then actually getting the bike might achieve the goal of getting fitter and healthier, and also save you money, in terms of petrol. So you just begin to look at these things, and because you have it in front of you, it's not in your head. I would say try and get out of your head and have it in front of you, because when stuff is in your head, sometimes they can be magnified or they can be minimized, but when it's in front of you, you can actually see it and you can actually address it. So those would be my first kind of practical steps.
And do you know what it makes me think is that when you talk it through with someone, sometimes they've got suggestions. So there's things that you said and I've been like, wow, I would have never thought of that. That's such a good idea. So not only writing it down, but actually sharing it with someone, getting someone else's perspective. There's no reason why we can't show bank statements and like say, help me see where, challenge me on these things.
Absolutely.
Because it could be things like, cup of tea here and there. It all adds up, doesn't it? So
absolutely. No, absolutely. I remember I had to cut out, getting Krispy Kreme donuts when I was, because that was like costing me like nearly like 30 quid a month at some point. I was much younger and much sillier, but but things like that.
Yeah, and for the people where, you know, that they're just such a long way off being able to make ends meet, what organizations and charities would you refer people to?
You know, I would say CAP is a is a great place. Citizens Advice Bureau, and also check with your local council. They actually have organizations in your local council that actually would help, you know, through hard times, and also speak with, you know, if you, with your energy providers or any providers that you have, they also have an obligation to actually help you through hard times. I know they're trying to make money, they're trying to do something, but they actually have an obligation to actually help you. So if you can't, you know, make payments, if you can't, you know, find a way through, they do have an obligation to try and give you some kind of assistance with that. So I would say try and approach these things, try and be open. And I would say if you don't raise it, if you don't you know, shout about it, nobody, like the help is just, it's not going to come and find you. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. So I think, again, going back to your other point in terms of us being really, you know, shy or feel shame about talking about it, I'll put it this way: if you don't talk about it, you never get the help. So it's really key that you do.
Yeah, really good point. There'll be another group of people, as I mentioned, who maybe do have enough at the moment or surplus. Is there any challenge you would give or wisdom as to how to steward that finance well?
Yeah, for me, it's, you know, it's very clear, and it's from the Bible. We, you know, those who have more of are almost, you know, charged with looking out for those who are poor or those who are in need. That is what that's what we're meant to do with you know, people that have these type of funds. So I think personally, for me, it would be a case of it could just be even on your street. It could just be, you know, in your workplace. You may notice that somebody is maybe skipping meals, or they're not coming out as much as they used to come out, or something's a bit off. Again, just check in, have a conversation with them, you know, just you know, open up that initial dialogue. And if
how do you do that? Because it's quite hard to raise the topic of money. So how would you do that with someone?
So for me, normally it would just be probably over like maybe a meal. You know, I might take them for a coffee, take them for a meal, and just get the person comfortable. You just want to come out and say, hey, you know, are you struggling with finances? That's a bit too much. But I think, again, it's about having that relationship with the person. You know, don't go in cold. like build the rapport with them first. Don't just you know, otherwise, you know, again, people will just shut down. And you know, as you talk, you can kind of, you get little signs. You know, and most times people will just come out and say, yeah, I'm struggling a bit here, you know, kind of thing. You know, I'm struggling to, you know, maybe, you know, feed my family, or I'm struggling to get to work, you know, things are really expensive, all that kind of stuff. You just listen out for these signals. And I think if you're in that position where you're, you know, perhaps more financially better off, you know, look to support, you know, charities in your area that are doing this work, that maybe like food banks that are trying to, you know, feed people for less. Or it could be excuse me, even like I saw something the other day about a like an organization that was giving cooking lessons to people.
Amazing.
So again, one of the things, you know, one of those 4 pillars is, you know, food. And it's a big expense, you know, the weekly shop is kind of, you know, for some people doubled or tripled. And actually what they found was, it wasn't a case where people were spending, you know, more money than they needed to. Like, they just didn't know what to do with some of the basics that they had in their cupboards and their fridge. So I thought, okay, actually, instead of you throwing it away and going out and spending like another 20 quid or something, if we showed you how to make a meal or a couple of meals out of these things, then you save yourself, you know, 30 quid. And that's a big deal. So I was like, I never saw it that way. Actually, the problem is not that this person is just spending loads of money on food. It's like they may not actually, again, have the skills to make the most of what they have. So
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I think on the generosity point, it's such a lovely way of being able to show God's love to someone by being generous, because it's countercultural in many ways. And so it has such a long lasting impact.
Absolutely.
It might be a moment of kind of ouch giving that away, but actually the joy that comes from seeing them blessed is just such a wonderful thing, isn't it?
And it's and again, to take it back to the Bible, that there is a gift of giving. There's actually a gift, that can be bestowed upon you to give. And there is a principle in the Bible that as you bless others, God will bless you, kind of thing. So it for me personally, it's one of the things that makes me the most happy. Is being being in that position where maybe I could buy somebody a cup of coffee, and it could just take that. It could just take a cup of coffee, like out of the blue. Oh, let me just buy you a cup of coffee, and that could change somebody's day. So I think there's so many benefits from it, and one of the things that I would say that kind of dawned on me when I kind of started researching more about money and all this kind of stuff was that it can be such a barrier to doing the work of God. And what I meant by that is, if you're in a position where you're consistently like under pressure financially, you just have no space in your mind to even think about anything else. You just have no like if there was a need to be met in your church community or even a wider community, you just cannot even be attentive to it because you're so kind of wrapped. I thought actually, if we can eliminate that, if we can teach people, or people can be shown actually no, you can be actually quite good at managing this topic of money, then it frees them up. That's one thing out the way now. There's several other barriers to people doing kingdom work, but I just thought that's quite a big one. I said myself, if somebody said to me, Fem, there's a call and we have to go to a different country or different part of the UK next week. I was like, oof, sorry, I actually can't. And I thought, wow, like that's quite interesting. That's quite interesting. And again, to take it back, these apostles initially, they were just like, yep, we're going, we're sending everything, and we're off. I thought, okay, it's going to take us a special level to kind of get to that, but that's an aspiration. That's an aspiration, I think.
Mm. And you've mentioned CAP a few times. Just tell us, what is the CAP course and what does it involve?
Of course. So CAP stands for Christians Against Poverty. It's a charity that's literally dealing with debt. They specialize in debt management, and the course is run by myself and other CAP money coaches around the country, and it just teaches people the very basics of building a budget, how to live by that budget, and essentially how to kind of manage debt, for those who find themselves in that situation. And it's just a really, really powerful tool, not only in terms of like money skills, but it's a powerful tool like as a kind of outreach as well, because it's not just for Christians, because people think, oh, this is just for Christians. No, it's for everyone. And I think the reason why it's for everyone is because it brings hope, and that is the message of Jesus Christ. It's hope. And for me, that is probably the most rewarding part. Is if somebody comes into that course and we can talk through the situation and then leave that course with a sense of hope, then it's worth it. And that's all somebody needs really, because if they don't have hope, then you're pretty much defeated. So I think that's what the course really, really gives. It's the money skills, but really, really, it's the hope, I would say.
And also, I imagine I've been in similar groups where there's a sense of community because you're all there for the same reason, and it's kind of like, I need help too.
Yeah,
and something quite nice about knowing that you're not the only one.
absolutely. No, absolutely.
how many weeks is CAP?
So CAP, it's normally 3 weeks, i.e. 3, evenings or days. I mean, it depends. It can be flexed, but it's normally over 3 different evenings, and that the course kind of runs for about. I would say this to people that come on the course: your money habits are not going to change in 3 sessions. It is a start of the journey of that. Because again, it's we've built up these habits over many years. It's not going to be undone in three sessions. But what it does do is give you that start to kind of start tackling it and to start looking at it, and then we follow up with advice after that as well.
And if there's someone who is kind of intrigued to come but feeling a bit nervous or a bit unsure, what would you say to them?
I would say just show up. And I say that because with most of these things, we're really scared to do anything new. But I say just show up, give it 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, if you don't like it, you can leave. Most of it is done on Zoom, so nobody knows. You don't need to turn your camera on. It's really relaxed. It's a pretty cool environment. And everything that we speak about stays within that session. Like nobody's going to be, speaking about it outside that group. But I would say just show up. But because whatever situation you find yourself in, if it's terrible, if it's bad, or if you're predicting that it's going to get worse, I would say it's better to have the skill set to kind of manage that situation than, like I say, bury your head in the sand or pretend that it's going to go away, because it's simply not going to go away. So I think let's get a grip on it and actually tackle the issues.
Wow, thank you, Femi. There is hope.
Absolutely.
And so glad that you run this course. I think it's just incredible for lots of people. So thank you. And thank you for taking the time.
Oh no, anytime. My favorite topic.
Take care.